Good afternoon. So welcome to the Student Assistance Fund workshop. This is a pre-recorded workshop that we're going to put up online for you to access. And then if you have any questions about the SAF and you need further information, you can email saf.wd@setu.ie or saf@wit.ie. So the old email works as well. This slide just relates to who can apply for the Student Assistance Fund. So if you'd like to read through it and just see if you are eligible to apply. Now, if there's any uncertainty around whether you're eligible or not, you can contact us on the emails that I previously mentioned, and these are listed on the website also. So very close to where this video will be uploaded, you can see our contact information. So it's important that you do check your eligibility. And for those students who are not eligible, you are listed on this slide, okay? So if you're on a course that doesn't lead to a higher education award, or if you're an international non-EU fee-paying student, so if you're paying high fees, international fees, you are most likely not eligible, but we can check this for you. There are different eligibility criteria for students who are Ukrainian refugees. So if this applies to you, again, I would ask that you just read through the slide, read through the information that we have, and email us in advance of making an application, and we can give you a little bit more guidance on it. So what can the Student Assistance Fund be used for? It can be used for any college associated expenses. So books, class materials. That includes if you've had to purchase a laptop for a specific course. So for some courses, a standard laptop may not be sufficient enough. So for maybe graphic design students, you may need an Apple MacBook, or for other courses, there might be higher graphics cards that you require to purchase a laptop. So if you've bought a laptop or need to purchase one, you can apply for support, financial support for that from the SAF. Other things like lab coats for any students that have had to buy lab coats, and obviously books then and other materials like stationery and printing costs, and any of those, they are books and class material expenses. Essential travel then applies to public transport, whether it's trains or buses to and from college, or if you run your own car. So if you have fuel receipts, tax and insurance, and if you are paying them yourself. So they can be considered for a Student Assistance Fund support. If you have rent and other utility bills, and this also applies to anyone who is repaying a mortgage. So any kind of accommodation costs are accepted. Now, some students may receive HAP, and that's completely fine. We can look at what you pay towards your HAP and then the contribution that you receive from the council, and we can help support you with utility and rent costs. With utility bills, that's your electricity, your gas, your heating, oil, wood, fuel, coal, all that sort of stuff. So all of those things are included, as well as Wi-Fi, internet, some TV bills, TV license, those kind of things. So again, quite broad. For any student parents, the next one then will be childcare costs. So for childcare costs, this would be if you're sending your child to a creche or after work support or study. For students, obviously in full-time education, childcare can be quite expensive, especially for lone parents. So please do submit some receipts or evidence from your bank statements of childcare costs, and we can try and help towards that also. Food, and then the final thing is medical. So medical costs would relate to any medical condition that you have or are suffering from, where you have prescriptions every month, or maybe you've consultant visits or expenses with scans and hospital appointments, additional transport costs because of a medical condition you have. And for some people as well, this might tie in with food. So we do see a lot of students with medical conditions where food can be very expensive for them. So you can explain that to us in your application. And that's a really, really good thing about the Student Assistance Fund, and I'll talk about it more in a few minutes, is the personal statement, where you can explain your personal situation in more depth. It's important to mention that the SAF cannot be used for the following costs. So it can't be used for tuition fees, registration fees or student contribution, student loan repayments, or costs borne by your college, which is your student card. And I believe that this was €15 this year. So you cannot use the SAF for those expenses. You can use it for your day-to-day living expenses, and that's really, really important. When you start to fill out your application, you'll notice that it's an extensive form. It does ask for a lot of information. And where you fill out a piece of information, if you click yes, you have to fill out an amount. And with that, you upload a proof or evidence of that amount. And in each section, you'll see that as you work through the form. So for example, if you get a SUSI grant, you will be asked to upload something to show that you received that grant. Now that could be your bank statement to show the grant coming into your bank account, or it can be your letter of award from SUSI, which shows your name and the amount of a grant that you receive every month. And that applies throughout all sections. So whether it's your funding, income, expenditure, and then for your personal statement, bank details and bank payment details, that's just information that you have to fill out and upload onto the application. So it is an entirely online application through Cognito Forms, and the link to apply is up on the website near where this video was posted. Regarding income and expenditure, documentation is required as proof. So when we talk about income, you have to disclose all income that you receive. Now this covers your SUSI grant, if you receive any support from your parents or guardians, if you have part-time work, or if you receive any social welfare payments. And that includes, back to education allowance, it's child benefit payments, only parent family payments, so a whole variety of social welfare payments as well. Please ensure that if you upload documentation that it is clear, legible and in date and has your name clearly marked. So what we mean there is that you're not uploading something that just has a figure, an amount on it and doesn't have your name or doesn't have any connection to you. So therefore we cannot verify that it's your income or that it's your expense. So it's important that you make sure we can verify the proof matches your name to your application. In your application, a lot of the time, your bank statements should show the majority of income and expenditure that you're spending. Now, unless you pay some things in cash or you pay from your Revolut account or a credit union current account, it depends. So in the application, we ask for 3 months worth of recent bank statements. So now I'm recording this video and we are in November. So anyone applying in November will need to give us the most recent 3 months, which is October, September, and August. So it's the 3 months immediately prior to when you submit your application. And you can submit your bank statements for all of your income and expenditure proofs if you can see those transactions on your bank statements. But we would ask that you highlight or write in pen beside them what the transactions are in relation to. So for example, for all of my utility costs, I might highlight all of those in pink on my bank statements and then upload those onto the application so that I can clearly see, okay, that's utility. And then for rent or accommodation or mortgage payments, highlight them, and then we can see, the assessors on the committee can see what those expenses relate to on your bank statements. Please ensure again that your name is visible. There is no point in uploading a screenshot of a transaction on a bank account where we can't see if it's actually from your bank account. Ensure that you give us an explanation of any credits or debits, particularly large ones that are in your account. So sometimes we might find that a student gets support from their parents or guardians around accommodation at the start of the year or throughout the year. So you need to explain if it's being covered by parents or guardians, or in the case that you yourself are paying it, you have to show that that money is going out of your bank account or going out of your Revolut or credit union. And that applies then for expenditure. Income and expenditure are quite similar in that way. You have to show evidence or proof of expenditure that you disclose on the application. So if your parents are paying for all of your expenses and you're covering your food, the only expense that you should include on the SAF application is food. You only put the expenses you yourself are paying. In the personal statement, you can then explain to us all of the other costs that your parents or guardians have, or the costs that your household have. But in the application, it is the individual who is applying their own income and expenditure. Once you've gotten through the application to this point, your form will show you between income and expenditure if you have a surplus or a deficit. And what that essentially means is a surplus is if you have money left over, you have more income than expenditure. A deficit means you have less income than expenditure. So a deficit equals debt, that you are spending more money than you have. Just to note that if someone has a very high surplus, meaning that they have a lot more income than their expenses going out, they are going to be unsuccessful or less likely to be successful in their SAF application. If someone has a low surplus, you are more likely to be awarded. And if your application is in deficit and we can see that all of your proofs or evidence are verifiable and that we can see them going out of your bank account, then you should be made successful. It is important to mention that amounts vary, and it is very much dealt with on a case-by-case basis on the individual application in front of the assessors. 2 assessors from the SAF committee will assess your application and will base their decision on the information and evidence you have provided beside your personal statement and looking at everything overall as a whole. So the awarding amounts this year, they start at €200 and they work up to €1,200. So the maximum you can get from the SAF is $1,200. And that's in very extreme severe cases. So typical awarding amounts would be significantly lower than that this year. If you had applied to the SAF last year or in previous years, the amounts may have been higher or may have been different, but in this academic year, 2022-2023, our amounts are from €200 to €1,200. With the SAF, it is a once-off payment. It's not maintenance like Susie, where you receive it monthly. This is a once-off payment to help with your student expenses and college associated costs. So the personal statement then, it's one of the final parts of your application, and it's one of the really, really important sections. It's where you get an opportunity to fill in any information that you didn't get to put on the application, or to explain your personal situation in terms of your living situation, your own health, if you have physical health difficulties, mental health issues, the real extent of your financial struggles, and where you're coming into difficulty. So it's, again, really, really important, and do not rush it, because it is at the end of the application. Sometimes people only write 2 or 3 sentences, and that doesn't give a very full picture of their situation. We really encourage you to write, 1 to 2 paragraphs about your situation. And you are guaranteed that your information is treated confidentially. It is password protected, it is secure in our system, and only 2 assessors will assess your application and make a decision on it. Underneath the personal statement, there is an option to upload additional documentation. Now, this is where you can upload files that maybe weren't asked for in the other part of the application, or where you didn't have space to upload additional proofs. So this could be for maybe medical expenses. Sometimes the form will only let you upload 3 or 4 uploads. You might have an awful lot more, and you can upload these in the additional documentation section. So it's really, really useful if you have additional bills or proofs, put them into additional documentation after the personal statement. Our final slide then is just around condensing file sizes. So sometimes when you upload from perhaps a phone or a different device, the uploads can be a little bit large, so you may need to reduce them. And there is explanations on how to do that on the form. If you struggle with it, we can help you by just emailing us, and we can do that, no problem. Please don't upload anything password protected. This mainly happens with pay slips. And again, if you're being paid into your bank account, your bank statement is proof of part-time employment. You don't need to go and get pay slips to show us. Your student email address is where all correspondence relating to your application is sent. If we email you and look for additional information to your student email, and you do not reply to us after 4 weeks, we have to make your application unsuccessful. Because we need to keep moving through applications and assessing them. So please get back to us as soon as possible if you receive an email from the SAF email account. And finally, application processing time. So as there is a huge volume of applications and students in financial difficulty at the moment, there is a very large volume of applications coming in daily. And there is a limited number of assessors on the SAF committee. So there can be a delay in when you submit your application to when you hear if it has been successful or unsuccessful. And that can take 4 to 6 weeks, with payment then happening after that if you are successful. So please do bear with us, as there is a significant delay at the moment due to the volume of applications received. And as mentioned, if you have any questions, you can email us and we will get back to you. So it's just saf.wd@setu.ie. Best of luck with your application, and we'll talk to you soon.